Good morning. It is Wednesday morning. It's 9 o'clock, and I am here with Norma Talks Metaphysics. And today, my topic is understanding the death process. Now, last Wednesday, I had a talk based on something that had come up on the Monday mental mind treatments about infections. And after a day of contemplation of how that is with so many people talking about this, that I came up and did last Wednesdays. So this Wednesday, once more, we look towards what has been happening on mental mind treatments regarding understanding the death process. It began several weeks ago when one of our regulars, mother, had been sent home to die, basically. Go home and she died. So the client, the participant, we'll put it that way, decided, and she came and asked me to do a mental mind treatment for an easy transition, etc. Well, what I found was so much fear and so much anxiety about the whole process that she was just wound up like a top, as they say. So we that was the first week, and the next week we went for another treatment, and again, to make things easy, etc. Well, this has been going on now for nearly a month, and my participants getting very, very tired of this very demanding mother who won't die. Doesn't that sound terrible? But it isn't, because she's demanding, she's frightened. And a situation happened this last week when I was talking to my participant that showed me that there had been trying to, from the other side, trying to calm her down, and just made her worse. So I know this is from my memory, when I first did this very first one for her and saw how, uptight she was about the whole process, is that what I got was that she had about 2.5 weeks. That's what I got. Well, that's long gone. And the lady still has not made the transition. So let's talk about death. It's one thing every one of us is going to go through, one way or the other, easily, not easily. Many ways people make their transition, but you will make a transition. You're going to leave the body that you encompass. And sometimes that is really, what would you say? Yeah, that's a little frightening if you don't understand it. Now, I grew up with older parents, so I had aunts and uncles and other people. Well, my grandparents died before. I mean, I think I was 3 when and then my grandfather was much older. My father's, same thing, like the old people were leaving. So I kind of grew up with always an understanding of this. Now, I also didn't know when I was little that I was an intuitive. I didn't know all that. So it was a matter of just recognizing as a natural process that you are going to go to the other side, as we called it then. I had a little bit of a church background, so I understood some of that element. Since then, I've learned a lot more. My both parents have gone, and I have mentioned this, I think, in another program that I did about how I cried all the way to my father's funeral because I had to give the eulogy, and it resolved a lot of issues for me where he was concerned. Because one of the major things I find is that to prepare ourselves we need to do a lot of self-forgiveness. Anything that we're holding on to, anything that we have a regret or a guilt over, we need to make sure that we have forgiven ourselves so that we are going in, you might say, with a clean slate. Now, the interesting thing is that for myself, when my daughter actually committed suicide, I forget how many years ago now, not that long ago, but several years. Not very good with time at the moment. Everything kind of congeals. Anyway, I had a lot of guilt about that. And not so much that she did that because she'd been trying for years, but that I wasn't able to stop that. And I know on her feelings, that she was depressed, and she was, and everything I offered and said or suggested, no, didn't want a part of that. So there was a little, so I've had to spend quite a bit of time forgiving myself over not being able to be there, not being able to basically stop it, or have her see another way. But it is. But before that, before this all happened, one of the other elements that I worked on was I realized that regret and guilt are the two things. I don't have a lot of regrets, but I did have a lot of guilt over different things. So I spent 6 months, truly, just about every day going out into what I call the love force and forgiving myself for whatever I had done throughout all time, all the lifetimes, all the in-between times, forgiving myself. So the first thing we have to do is become clear on where we have guilt or regrets, because we do. We mess up. If you're like me, you'd mess up. So, you really wanted to really know about that. So it's like when I found this participant's mother, the very first one, and the one since, although they have told me in some way she got easier as every week I did a treatment for her, is that we can let go, but the person really has to do what they have to do because they're fearful. So let's talk about what happens. And I'm going to tell you a personal story that happened to me. My husband, my first husband, his stepfather was in hospital, and we knew it was the end was coming. Now, his story was very interesting. He was the second person in Canada to get polio. He was 19 years of age. They didn't know what it was that was. So most of his life, he had spent wearing a caliper on one leg, and then as he got older, he wore two. One of the most wonderful men, people that I've ever met. He was just an incredible man as far as I was concerned. Oh yeah, he had his prejudice, but who doesn't have that from that time period? So anyway, he was in hospital, and so I was going to see him, and I took the kids. No, I didn't take the kids right away. They were like what? Maybe I think Bridget was maybe 5 and 3 maybe. But I'll tell you the story of this. I was visiting him one day, and I didn't realize my intuitive powers at this point, but I was aware on the others, like this entity that had red hair. So I went home and I said to my mother-in-law, "Who's the red-haired woman? There's a red-haired woman coming to see," and his name was Andy. And she said, "Oh, that's his mother." I said, "Oh, okay." So again, not really knowing anything too much at all at that point of time, I went, and soon after. Now he wore calipers by that time on both legs and walked with a walking stick. And it was like I watched a picture above him where somebody was teaching him to walk without them, convincing him he could walk without these calipers. And as I watched, I saw him begin to do that. I went home and said to my husband, "We have to go to the hospital this afternoon because Andy's going." We took both the kids. And when this man was in a coma, basically. And when I said to the kids, "Say goodbye to Granddad because you won't be seeing him again," sometimes a little not thinking. Anyway, this man who hadn't moved in the bed for days because I'd been out there several times, body shuddered. And sure enough, by next morning, he had gone. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us that people come for us. That when you go to pass, that there are people to help you on that journey. But if you don't have that knowledge, even the sense of somebody else, or when your spirit, your soul, whatever you want to call it, goes to leave, and this is what happened to this participant's mother, I feel last week, just on how she responded, is that and I know my own mother did that when she was sick. And what was that? She said. And I said, oh, it's okay. Just relax. It's all right. And she lasted quite a bit longer after that. But it's like the soul getting ready to depart. And so there is a different feeling, a different awareness, a different sense of where you're heading and where you're going and what happens. Basically, there's always someone who comes, someone who you may know, someone you may not know. Depends on many variables, but there is someone. You do not make your transition usually alone. You may have a whole group helping you across. That's one of the interesting things. Now, I learned a lot of this through movies. The Christians have a really good sense of what takes place. Doesn't mean that they haven't cleared the guilt or regret. They don't talk about that as much, I don't think. But they have put out some excellent, excellent movies. One of them I remembered, and it made a big impression on me, was the story of this man. He was in a very, very bad car accident. And he was a pastor down in the south somewhere of the U.S., and he had a very, very, very bad accident. I can't remember the names of some of these movies, but I try and go to them because I find they're very inspirational. And this one was that he was in this tremendous car wreck. Like, he couldn't get out of the car. He was sitting in the car, and knew he was dying. Now, he was okay with that. But another pastor came along and saw the wreck and went up to the, I'm going to say policeman, and it was one of the highway patrol guys, I guess, and said, I'm a pastor. Is it okay if I pray for this guy that's in the car? Nobody could get really near this car because it was so tangled. And so he prayed for this man, for his transition, probably. I don't know the words he said. The man made the transition. Now, then the man remembered his transition. He arrived on the other side to everybody that he had ever met in his life. Brings tears to my eyes thinking about it. People he went to school with, some teachers, some family, just a huge crowd was waiting and rejoicing that he was there. Now, then the next step is something that you hear often when people come back. A loving being said to him, I'm sorry, but your life is not over. You have to go back. There's things for you to do. There's another chapter to do yet. And next thing, he found himself in the hospital with a long recovery because he was very beat up. But being a pastor, he started talking about this adventure of his after the death, after he died, basically. He had died. So anyway, one day he was preaching in a church, and this man came up and said to him, I came upon your accident, and I asked the patrolman, can I pray for you? And he said, yes. And this man turned to him and said, I am thank you for holding my hand. I've really felt the strength from your hand. And the guy said to him, I couldn't go anywhere near the vehicle. It was so bad. No, I was standing off. I never touched you. And the man said, really? But who held my hand? Who held his hand? Could have been someone. It was definitely a higher power. And that man had a job to do. And that was to go and say, do not be afraid of making the transition. The transition is the transition. You're on to the next phase. You're on to the next element. You're on to the next way of where you're heading or where you're going. As people who perhaps don't have some understanding of life after death, they go through their life. Everything is fine. Everything is good. And then all of a sudden they have a situation come in, and maybe like this, my Monday night participant's mother's, and I think she mentioned to me she's in her 90s now, has, like, doctor said, oh, just go home because they think she can't live. She's got a condition, except she is living. Now, isn't that interesting? She's got a condition. They all thought she was going to go within a couple of days, but she's still living because iron will is frightened to make that transition move. No real spiritual, even though the lady that participated has great spiritual understanding, the mother has none. Now, my mother did. She said she had enough of church when she was young, because they went 3 times every Sunday because her father was very involved. But she didn't really know what I would call the basics of how you transition. And of course, I was just down there for a few weeks to sort of see her before, and I had to come back because I had a business to run through the summer. And anyway, she did make her transition, so she made it, and she's fine where she is. She's learning. She said, "Well, now I'm here. I might as well learn it, right, Mom? Go for it." What do you fear? I know sometimes when I've had a couple of instances. Oh, I have to tell you one story. I think I've said this before because I still laugh about it. When COVID was just beginning, now I have to preface this. In my lifetime, I have caught very bad flus. Never had a flu shot, never had any shots or basically anything, but I do catch bad flus. And they'll tell you the years where they come. I didn't catch few, there were a few I missed, but most of them I've caught. So anyway, I go off to Mexico with a girlfriend to watch some tennis, which we never did get to do. And I began to feel not very well. My energy was gone. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know what was happening back here, that people were having this terrible flu through, until I got back. And I phoned my doctor up and said, "Look, I really feel awful. I don't know what's going on." Oh, she said to me, "Do you have a cough?" I said, "No, I don't have a cough." And so she said, "Well, just do what you do and, kind of take care of it." And she was very kind because I didn't have a cough. I had some other elements. Anyway, as the days went on, I became weaker and not very well. But I began at night. One night, I had this fever. Never had a fever in my life. I didn't know what it was. It was so hot and awful. And so I went, just, you get all sweaty and just everything pours out of you. And I went, "Am I dying? Like, I'm questioning this. Am I dying?" Because that's how I felt. I felt like I was dying. But so I looked around, thinking intuitive, looked around. Nobody's here. Nobody's here. There's no daughter. There's no Bridget. There's no mother. There's no guides. And I've got a lot of guides that I've had over the years. There's nobody. It's just me. Then I went, "I'm not dying." And that was it. I turned the corner. I wasn't dying. I just had a fever. So it's like very often when I've been lucky to know and sense when people are around and when they're not. Often I don't bother looking. That's true. But it's still, know the process. Know that when the time comes they call it, sorry, I'm backtracking a bit here. They call it initiation at death. And that is, you let go of this life. You let go of your regrets. You let go. Hopefully you've forgiven yourself before that. But it's like you let go of everything and you surrender to the process so that you can go to as high a level as you possibly can. Now, I've had over the years different guides that have worked with me, and they have said, and I have been told that when you come over to this side, you'll have a choice of what you want to do next. So we'll see whether that happens, because I'm not gone yet, though I've thought a couple of times as I'm getting up there that, that might come closer. But the point is, what I wanted to do this with is that here is this poor woman who's petrified of dying. And even though the daughter tells me she really didn't have much of if any, spiritual guidance, she has no idea, and nobody is there to tell her what to do. She doesn't want to listen anyway, but still, sometimes just knowing a little. Now, sometimes knowing a little is not enough, because a lot of people, because they haven't done the forgiveness work they need, if they haven't let go the regrets, if they haven't let go the guilt, they are stuck. And in being stuck, they get fearful. Breathing, allowing, and knowing when this time is done, then you transcend. It's not the end. It's the beginning of the next phase. Now, I left the country to come to this country, so I know how that works, where you let go and you come into something new and you have to acclimatize to that. I know other Christian type movies I've watched, they've had very, very good understandings on this. It's been several of them I've watched that have been just great, and what do you say, letting people know and understand how these things happen and what goes on. There's other people that have had experiences and come back, and some people talk about it, some don't talk about it. So open. If you have any, let me preface this. If you have any fear of letting go of this life because you don't really know what's there, know that there are levels upon levels upon levels upon levels upon levels, and you will go to the level of your heart, your spirituality, your heart, not in the physical heart, but your generosity heart. You will go and you can learn and do a lot of growth over that side. That's what it's for. Every level, there are many of them, are there with teachers. Just as I have been a metaphysical teacher for many years, and so many others are that, we're here to educate. And there are educators on every level on the other side. They welcome you. They're there. They want to help. They want you to understand so you can rise. And when you choose, or when you're maybe sent to come back into the physical form, then you'll be ready. You'll bring that understanding with you, and so that it all comes together in such a beautiful way. Just what I would like for everybody is to really understand there is no fear, but work with your forgiveness so that you feel clear. I know I have to do it a lot because I've got a mouth that sometimes doesn't think. And it does, like, I say things and then I only do is go home and say sorry to my, I didn't mean to do that. Not to the person sometimes because they've gone on, but when I used to do that to people, they used to look at me like I was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? So I know it's my inner feelings. It's my inner sense. But to keep as clear as you possibly can, for you never know when that day or that moment comes when it's time to leave this vibration to go into the other vibration. And I truly hope that everybody that hears this or referred to this or whatever, is that you let go of the fear. There definitely is an energy. There are definitely people that come and help you, whether it's family, whether it's guides, whether it's helpers. There's lots of movies out there that have explained it. I watched a lot of different movies, not always religious ones. There were some that were funny, put up in a sort of a funny way. But it's just, take a look at some of the movies that are out there that help on this level. They talk about the processes. Some of them way back, I remember I watched them, and it was really educational if you're aware and wanting to understand and expose. And yet it was done sort of as a comedy, truth comedy type thing. So there's lots there that you can go through, and I really truly hope that you have enjoyed or got out some information from this. No fear. This is a natural process. We will all go through it. So we want to be not open to it, not like welcoming it, but it's knowing that there's guilt has no part to play. And forgiveness is the key, truly is. And I just want to see on my comments here, I just wanted to see if anybody had a specific question, because I said if they did, no, they're all supportive and blessings, they said, with hops. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching later, but whenever. And I will be back on Sunday with a Sunday thought, and again on Monday with mental mind treatments. You have This is Wednesday, so have a great till the end of the week and enjoy. Thanks for watching. Bye now. My little machine didn't want to work.